Good morning, children. So, welcome back for today's session. Hope you must have revised what we discussed in the previous session. Yeah, I hope you can remember the lesson which we discussed. Yes, tissues chapter. So, we had a brief recap. Okay. So, today now we will move on to the next chapter in which you are given some worksheets to be done. Okay. Hope you must have read lesson and you must have gone through the difficult terminologies and you must have followed the concept, what the lesson is all about. Yes, if I'm not wrong and if you have read the lesson, definitely you must be knowing that the lesson deals with the various groups of organisms and the life forms. So in this session we'll be talking about this chapter, diversity in life forms. So now let me come to the first word, diversity. What is meant by diversity? Diversity is nothing but the differences. So do we see differences here? Yes, definitely. In chapter 8 in class 8 you had the word biodiversity. Yes. So the differences in the life forms. So are we able to see the differences in the life forms? Yes. Now why these differences come? The differences come because of their different kinds of features. Maybe their habits, maybe their size, maybe their functions, and maybe even their body structure and design. So these differences, they are termed as variations. What do we call them as? Variations. Okay, clear? Then these variations are nothing but the differences. Differences in what? In their features. What is in what are differences in their features, which are also termed as characteristics. What do we call them as? Characteristics. So what are characteristics? Any function which an organism does. Okay, it can be in terms of its habits, in terms of functions, or maybe in the terms of their body design and structure. Now if you remember, in your worksheet you are being given one question. Mention the variations, any three variations which we observe in our day-to-day life. Okay, if you have been reading your textbook thoroughly, you must have come across three good examples. Okay, what were those three good examples? One was with respect to their size and the other was with respect to their lifespan, and the third one was in terms of their appearance, or nothing but, let me say, it was with respect to the colors. So size, yes, okay, if you see, size is varying in case of all the life forms. We have microscopic bacteria and fungi to your macroscopic plants and animals. Okay, then we have few organisms which will survive for few hours, like bacteria, and then tortoise which can survive almost to a period of 150 years. Then in terms of their appearance, in the sense colorful nature, so you have some of transparent fishes and worms, and then you have colorful butterflies and also some sort of animals. Okay, so this was about water variations. So children, so we discussed how variations are observed in the various life forms. So now these variations only become the features, whom we term it as what? Characteristics. So based on these characteristics only, we are going to group the organisms into different categories. So when I talk like example, if I say yeast or mushroom, I know that both yeast and mushrooms are fungi. Similarly, when I say salmonella, or when I say bacillus, or when I say lactobacillus, I immediately identify them as what? That they are bacteria, isn't it? Similarly, when I say that cat or elephant or dog or even for man, what is common for them? They are mammals. So we have seen that all these life forms have been grouped into different groups based on what? Based on their characteristics. And why did we group them? The grouping has many purposes. The first most purpose is for our convenient and easy understanding of the organisms. Then second thing, to know the similarities and as well as the dissimilarities. And the third thing, to know the point from where they have evolved. And another fourth important point, to study about their functions and structures more in detail. Okay, so now how am I grouping them? I am grouping them by observing their some common features and some uncommon features. So I can say based on their similarities and based on their dissimilarities. Okay, so now what is this grouping called as? This grouping is only called as classification. So what is classification? Classification is nothing but the grouping of organisms based on their similarities and dissimilarities. So then the question comes, what features or what characteristics will I take for the classification? So now when I am taking the characteristics for classification, I'll go for the very fundamental characteristic for differentiation or maybe even for grouping them. If I say plants and animals, yeah, plants I can say autotrophs, animals I can say heterotrophs. And similarly, if I say earthworm and dog, both are animals. But then, do we keep them under the same group? No. If you remember the chapter World of Living, you said earthworm is an invertebrate and dog is a vertebrate. So you see that as we go deeper into the organism, we are seeing that different features are appearing based on which we are giving to classify the organisms into different groups. But then plant or maybe an earthworm or maybe a dog or maybe a algae or fungi. What is common for all? These are all living organisms. And we know that there is one common feature for all these organisms, that is we all have arised from cells. And we know that there is one common feature for all these organisms, that is we all have arised from cell. Where have we arised from? Cell. So can I say now cell as the fundamental unit for classification? Yes, I can say cell can be a fundamental unit for classification. But then remember chapter 1. In chapter 1, you studied about the internal structure of cell, wherein you studied the very most important part of the cell, which is nothing but your nucleus. So if you remember, based on nucleus, we divided organisms into two, prokaryotes and eukaryotes. So can you recall what is a prokaryote? I think you can give an example. Yes, bacteria. So bacteria is a prokaryote. Why it is a prokaryote? Yes, because it has no nucleus but a genetic material which is also termed as nucleoid. And then man is a eukaryote. Why? He has a nucleus. So what was the basic level of difference coming in all the organisms? Very below, very previous to cell was the genetic material. So what is my fundamental basis of classification? Nucleus. So nucleus or the genetic material, let me not say even nucleus, it is a genetic material which becomes the fundamental basis of classification. So from nucleus I move on to cell. So cell, whether they are one-celled organism, whether they are multi-celled organism. So unicellular, multicellular. Then furthermore characteristics are added. Like suppose plants autotrophs, animals heterotrophs. Again animals, you have animals with a backbone, animals without a backbone. So you see that the classification or the grouping keeps on increasing based on the number of characteristics accumulated. But the very fundamental basis of classification will be what? Nucleus. So children, today we discussed about the various in terminologies which we are going to come across. Children, one request I would like to make you. Please read the chapter thoroughly, because this chapter is very much important from the examination point of view and even for your next year. So what were the terminologies we discussed? Variations, features, classifications. I hope you will read this chapter. Already you have read it, but just once more have a read. Okay, such that you can understand in a better manner. Thank you.